My name is Sarah Hammond. I'm 30 years old. And this is the story of how my family tried to turn my life into their storage room, until I gave them a door they couldn't walk through. It started on a quiet Sunday evening in Franklin, Tennessee. My parents' two-story home smelled like rosemary, lemon, and false affection. They held Hammond family dinners every first Sunday of the month, like a ritual no one dared skip unless they had a medical emergency or a plane crash. I arrived 10 minutes late on purpose. It was my small rebellion, a way of saying I was no longer the obedient daughter who always smiled and stayed quiet. The front door creaked open, and there was my father, Edward Hammond, in his pressed slacks and ironic lack of warmth. He gave me one of those dry, obligatory hugs. Like a handshake dressed in a lie. "Sarah," he said, nodding, like I was a client arriving late to a boring meeting. Inside, my mother Linda was fluttering around the kitchen, her signature roast in the oven. The good china was laid out, cloth napkins folded into swans. The whole house looked like a page torn from a Southern Living magazine. Except, beneath the elegance was always something sharp, something scripted. My younger sister, Emily, was already sunk into the sofa, scrolling through her phone. 27, glowing with the kind of chaotic beauty you'd find in a perfume ad. Always arriving with a crisis, always getting saved. This time? Another breakup. Another fiancé that never made it to the altar. "Take a seat," my mom said, not looking up from her cutting board. "Roast is nearly ready. I just reheated it." I nodded and walked into the dining room, passing a mirror on the wall. If I could have paused, I think I would have seen the crack forming in my own reflection. I had worked so hard to build a life of peace, a 6-floor apartment in Midtown Nashville, sunlight streaming in through the windows, soft jazz on weekends. But I should have known. Tonight was never about dinner. It was an ambush. We ate in silence for 20 minutes. Then my father put his utensils down, the family's ancient signal that something was about to be dropped, something that usually benefited everyone except me. "Emily needs a place to stay for a while," he began in his deadpan voice, the same one he used when reading investment reports. I blinked. "Okay, and?" He didn't miss a beat. "We talked it over. She'll be moving into your apartment." Just like that. No request. No discussion. Just a royal decree, like I was a landlord who worked for free. I lowered my fork slowly, feeling my stomach knot. "Excuse me?" My mother poured more wine. "It's got 2 bedrooms, and your job has you traveling so often. That office is just sitting there. Might as well be put to use." I looked at Emily, who now raised her head with a half-smile. "Just a few months. I'll be quiet. Promise." My jaw clenched. "No one thought to ask me?" My father exhaled like I'd just asked if water was wet. "It's a temporary arrangement. You're making it bigger than it is." I set my glass down, the weight of it suddenly unbearable. "My apartment isn't a guest house. It's not community property. Families help each other," my mother chimed in. "We've already got the moving truck lined up for next Saturday. Your Uncle Frank's lending us his." Emily tossed her phone on the table. "Seriously, it makes perfect sense. Your place is perfect. And your life is messy," I muttered. "Excuse me," she hissed. "Nothing." My mother turned toward me, finally looking me in the eye. "You're overreacting." I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. "No. What's overreacting is deciding to move someone into my home without even calling me first." "Sarah, sit down," my dad said in that voice I'd hated since I was 10, the one that said he thought I was ridiculous. I didn't. I walked straight out the door, my heels echoing off the polished floors like the end of a final act. Back in my car, the silence was like a scream. I gripped the steering wheel, shaking. All the years I'd stayed quiet. All the times I let things slide. babysitting relatives, giving up my bed for freeloading cousins, taking on extra work so my siblings could explore their passions. And now, they were just going to hand over my home like it was a forgotten casserole dish. As I drove back to Nashville, my mind flooded with old scenes, Mom calling me cold when I didn't host my cousin last year. Dad wiring money to my brother after he dropped out of college, again. Emily crashing on my couch for a week that turned into 3 months once before. And now they expected me to roll over again? Not this time. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I opened my lease agreement and read it like it was scripture. I found the clause, no guest over 14 consecutive days without permission from building management. I emailed the manager, explained I might have a temporary guest and wanted to follow proper procedure. I attached my ID, copied the clause, and asked for formal approval. By morning, it was granted. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in months, Mason. He was an old colleague, between places after a water pipe burst in his condo. Clean, respectful, organized. We'd worked together on the Westmont project. If anyone could handle house sitting for 2 weeks, and handle unexpected guests, it was him. I sent a message, need a favor. Temporary stay. Totally legal. Apartment available Saturday. Interested? He called me back in 15 minutes. I'm in. And thanks. What happened next? Let's just say that when my parents opened the door next Saturday, they weren't expecting a 6-foot-tall man with a signed guest agreement to greet them. And what Mason told them, along with the building's security team watching the hallway, would leave them stunned, humiliated, and completely shut out. The Saturday they planned to move Emily into my apartment, I was 463 miles away. I'd packed a duffel bag, locked my valuables in my office locker at work, and driven through the night to a rental suite on the quiet edge of Rosemary Beach. The kind of place where no one knew your name and the only thing loud was the surf crashing into the sand. I'd brought 2 books, 1 sweater, and no expectations, except for the storm I knew was coming. At exactly 10:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. 3 notifications from my security camera app. I sat cross-legged on the little balcony of the rental, wrapped in a throw blanket with a steaming mug of green tea in hand. When I opened the footage, it started playing automatically. The first clip was brief. My dad stood outside my door, sunglasses on, knocking like a man expecting compliance. My mom held a large plastic bin. Behind them, Emily looked completely unbothered, scrolling her phone while resting against the hallway wall. The second clip triggered just as the door opened. Mason stepped into frame. He looked calm. Casual. Jeans and a white t-shirt. A clipboard in hand. I couldn't hear the audio, but I knew what he was saying. We'd rehearsed it like a play the night before. I'd written the script. He raised the guest agreement. He pointed to his name and the highlighted clause about legal authorization. He motioned toward the security camera above the door. My dad's posture stiffened. My mom, always the silent battering ram of the family, began gesturing rapidly. I watched her lips move, her eyes flash. Emily stayed a step behind, her sunglasses now on top of her head, chewing gum like she was watching a reality show. Then came the final clip. The building's head of security stepped into view. May Whitaker, my building manager, must have called him after I'd forwarded the authorization email. He didn't raise his voice. He simply walked over, reviewed Mason's documents, and nodded. And just like that, my family left. No suitcase rolled in. No curtains picked out. No spare bedroom occupied. Just 3 retreating figures with stiff backs and bruised egos. I sat back in the chair and laughed, not cruelly, not smugly. Just softly. Like someone who had finally exhaled after holding her breath for far too long. My phone buzzed again an hour later. This time, a message. "MOM, we're at your apartment." A man opened the door and said, "You authorized this?" Is this some kind of joke, Sarah? Then another. Dad, this isn't how family treats each other. Call me immediately. And then the third. Emily, wow. I'm literally homeless. You're unbelievable. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a long walk down the beach, my feet sinking into wet sand, letting the waves lap around my ankles. I thought about all the times I had done the polite thing. The expected thing. The obedient daughter thing. And where had it gotten me? I remembered sitting in my bunk bed in college while my cousin took my mattress. I remembered peeling potatoes for Thanksgiving dinner while Emily sipped cocktails and posted selfies in my kitchen. I remembered getting pneumonia in my 20s and calling my mom from the hospital, only to hear her sigh and say, "I'm dealing with Emily's breakup right now. You'll be fine." And now I was the villain for choosing peace. Let them be mad. That night, I muted their group chat. Turned off all notifications. And let the ocean rock me to sleep. When I got back to Nashville 2 days later, Mason had already left. He left the keys on the counter, the apartment clean, the couch fluffed, even the plant watered. A post-it note on the fridge said, "Didn't let anyone in." Your line held. Thanks for trusting me. I smiled and slipped the note into the drawer where I kept meaningful scraps, photos, receipts, things that reminded me I wasn't invisible. Not anymore. The real surprise came that Friday. Another motion alert. I opened the feed. This time, it wasn't just my parents. They'd returned with the building manager. May looked composed, patient, and not amused. My mom waved a printed copy of something in the air. My dad pointed toward my apartment door. But Mason wasn't there anymore. It was just the door. Closed. Locked. And firmly not theirs. May read whatever they handed her, then shook her head. She raised her hand and spoke, slowly, deliberately. My mother's face dropped. Her shoulders tensed. Her mouth formed words I didn't need to hear to understand. They'd been told the truth, formally, this wasn't their space. It never was. They turned and walked away. And in that moment, something in me shifted. Not triumph. Not vindication. Just a quiet confirmation. I wasn't being selfish. I was finally taking up the space I'd earned. The messages kept coming. Mom sent a 2-page text, beginning with "Do you remember when I stayed up with you during your chickenpox at age 4, and ending with "Now you'd rather house a stranger than your own sister?" Emily's posts on social media grew cryptic and bitter. She posted a black and white selfie with a caption, "Some people show their true face when you're most vulnerable." I didn't reply. I sent a screenshot to Katie. She texted back, "They're not seeking resolution. They're performing victimhood." I smiled. That Saturday, Katie came over with a bottle of wine and 2 cartons of Thai food. We sat on my rug, laughing over our high school memories. No one knocked. No phones buzzed. I finally admitted, "It still hurts though. I know I'm right, but it feels like I abandoned them." Katie tilted her head. "You didn't abandon anyone. You enforced a boundary they were never willing to respect." I nodded slowly. "Even Emily?" She shrugged. "Especially Emily. She's used to being rescued. And she's mad you didn't play along this time." I leaned back on the sofa, eyes on the soft glow of my living room lamp. "So what now?" Katie grinned. "Now? Now you let them sit in it. You don't have to clean this up. Let them realize what life looks like without the person who always bails them out." And I did. For once, I let the silence work in my favor. By the following Wednesday, my phone had calmed temporarily. My mom's calls stopped after her last voicemail went ignored. I didn't even listen to it. Just seeing the preview, "I didn't raise you to be this cold," was enough. My dad's emails, once filled with bullet points and budget-style guilt trips, went silent. And Emily? She had moved from passive-aggressive captions to full-blown victim theater online. A new post appeared on her Instagram stories. A selfie in front of a storage facility with the caption, "Back to square one. Some people will watch you drown if it means they stay dry." Complete with a broken heart emoji and the song Unwritten playing in the background. It got 74 replies. One person tagged me directly. Another messaged me asking, "Hey, is this about you?" I didn't answer. I just blocked that stranger and kept walking. Because while Emily was performing for sympathy, I was rebuilding something real. Myself. Thursday morning, I met with Dr. Hadley again. Her office smelled faintly of lavender and old books. She wore a soft gray cardigan, her hair pulled into a low bun, and she gave me the same expression she always did, attentive, without trying too hard. "Sarah," she said, her pen already poised. "What's shifted since last week?" I stared at the spot where the window's light hit the edge of her coffee table. Then I said the words that felt foreign even in my own mouth. I said no. And the world didn't end. She smiled softly. "And how did it feel?" I breathed in deep. Like I finally set down a bag I didn't realize I was carrying. One labeled, "You owe them everything." She nodded, scribbled something, then leaned forward. "When you think of your home now, your apartment, how do you feel about it?" I didn't even have to think. Safe. There it was. My answer. For the first time in decades, I had a place where no one else got to decide what was appropriate, what was owed, what I was supposed to sacrifice. And even though part of me still ached, especially when I remembered my mom's shaky voice saying, "I just wanted you two to be close," the bigger part of me felt grounded. Whole. That Saturday, while cleaning my kitchen, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't my mom. It wasn't my dad. It was Emily. A single message. "Can we talk?" Not about moving in. Just talk. I stared at it for a long while. I didn't know what I expected, maybe another demand, or a guilt-soaked plea. But the words were so small, so uncharacteristically unpolished, that they felt real. I responded simply. "Sure. But not at my place. Pick somewhere neutral." She chose a quiet coffee shop in East Nashville. Off the main road. No big windows. No Wi-Fi passwords printed in chalk. Just coffee, wooden booths, and silence. I arrived first. Sat by the window with my back straight and my palms on the table like I was bracing for impact. 10 minutes later, Emily walked in. No makeup. Hair in a loose braid. Dressed in jeans and a hoodie. Not the usual performance-ready version of herself. Just Emily. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around her cup like she needed its warmth to speak. "I was mad," she said first. "Still kind of am." I raised an eyebrow. "Okay. But," she added, "I realized I didn't even ask you." Not once. I just let Mom and Dad decide everything. Like always. I didn't answer. She kept going. "I don't think I ever really saw you as a separate person. You were always just Sarah. The one who handled stuff. Who had her life together. Who'd say yes." That stung. Not because it wasn't true. But because it was. "You didn't even consider that I might not want to host you?" I asked, finally letting the edge slip into my voice. She flinched. "No. I didn't. I assumed." "I'm sorry." The words sat there. They didn't mend the crack. But they were something. "I was going through a lot," she continued, "and Mom made it sound like you'd be fine with it. She said you were always gone for work anyway. That you'd barely notice." I nodded slowly. That's how they've always framed it. That my life is flexible, reusable, empty space just waiting to be filled by someone else's needs. She looked down. I think I've gotten used to being carried. By them. By you. I'm 27, Sarah. And I don't even know how to balance a budget. That's not your fault, I said. But it's your responsibility now. Silence stretched between us. Then she pulled out a folded paper. Rental listings. Circled addresses. I'm going to tour a few tomorrow. Already applied to one. Mom offered to help with the deposit, but it's in my name this time. I blinked. For the first time in months, I felt something warm toward her that wasn't resentment. Not joy. Not pride. Just relief. Maybe, just maybe, this chapter didn't have to end in permanent exile. I hope it works out, I said. And I meant it. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. But when we stood up to leave, she looked at me like a real person. Not a servant. Not a backup plan. Not her personal plan B. Just Sarah. Someone with boundaries. Someone she couldn't walk through without knocking. Back home that night, I looked around my apartment. It still smelled like vanilla and jasmine from the candle I lit earlier. My books were still in color order. My rug was still centered. My life, still mine. I sat on the couch, curled up with a blanket, and thought about all the years I'd given without ever asking for anything back. And how good it felt, finally, to stop giving to people who only ever came to take. The day after I met Emily for coffee, I slept in. Not out of exhaustion. But because I finally could. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, there was no background noise in my head, no checklist scribbled across my consciousness reminding me what I had to give, fix, or host. I rolled over in bed and let the sunlight hit my face through the blinds like a quiet blessing. My phone vibrated once. A photo from Emily. She stood in the center of a small studio apartment in Berry Hill, holding a shiny silver key between her fingers and grinning without a trace of performance. Signed the lease. Thanks for making me face life, even if I hated you for it. I stared at the message, rereading it 3 times. It was short. But not empty. There was a kind of peace that followed, the rare kind you don't even notice until it replaces something far heavier. I responded simply. Proud of you. No hearts. No smiley face. Just truth. And for once, that was enough. My mom didn't reach out for almost 2 weeks. Not a call, not a text, not even her usual forwarded chain emails about angel blessings or viral holiday recipes. I figured she was either stewing or strategizing, probably both. Then, 2 days before Thanksgiving, she called. This time, I answered. Hi, sweetheart, she said, her voice just a little too bright. I was wondering, if you're not busy, would you want to bring something for dessert? Only if you have the time. That pause, only if you have the time, was new. It was hesitant. Respectful, even. I took a breath. I can. But I won't be staying long. I'm coming with Katie. We've got plans later. Oh, she said, and I could hear the surprise in her voice. Okay. That's fine. That's lovely. Katie's always welcome. She was trying. In her own way. I could feel it. And I was willing to meet her halfway. But only halfway. When Thanksgiving arrived, I walked into my parents' house with Katie by my side, holding a pie I'd baked the night before. Not the whole meal, not 3 side dishes, not a full setup. Just a pie. One item. One offering. And nothing more. The table was already full. Emily was there too, seated next to my dad, chatting about a job interview she'd just had. She wore a blazer. No glitter, no drama, no tears. She met my eyes and nodded. I nodded back. No apology required this time. No explanation either. Just acknowledgement. I placed the pie on the sideboard, and Mom came over with an awkward smile. "It smells amazing," she said. "Thank you," I replied. Then she paused. "I'm glad you're here." And for once, I believed her. But I also knew I didn't have to stay late, clean up after everyone, or play event coordinator. I wasn't the built-in house staff anymore. Katie and I stayed for less than 2 hours. We left just after dessert, and no one begged me to stay. On the drive back to Nashville, Katie looked at me and said, "You realize what just happened, right?" "What?" "You rewrote a pattern. Not with a fight. With a boundary." I didn't reply right away. Because deep down, I knew she was right. And it felt bigger than I'd expected. A week later, my dad called. Not to guilt-trip me. Not to defend anyone. Just to talk. He asked about my work. Said he'd read something in the paper about solar panel incentives and wondered if it might affect my firm. For the first time in our entire relationship, he didn't sound like a manager. He sounded like a dad. At one point, he paused and said, "When you moved out all those years ago, I thought it was just a phase. Rebellion. But I see now, maybe it was the most grown-up thing you ever did." I sat on my sofa, stunned. "I didn't want to disappoint you," I said quietly. "You didn't," he replied. "We disappointed you." And then he added, "I don't say it often, but I'm proud of what you've built." Truly. Something loosened in my chest. Not forgiveness, not entirely. But peace. Over the next few weeks, things got quieter. Emily started texting me more. Nothing deep, just updates. A new job. A new coworker she liked. A recipe she tried that went terribly. Each one felt like a breadcrumb, a way of saying I want to reconnect, but I'll do it on your terms this time. We agreed to meet for dinner at a burger place halfway between our apartments. She arrived early, already seated. Ordered my favorite for me. No assumptions, she just remembered. She smiled as I slid into the booth. I started therapy. My eyes widened. With Dr. Hartman. The one I used to call useless and overpriced. I let out a surprised laugh. "You actually went?" "I figured," she said, "if someone like you needs help, maybe I do too." She was being honest. For once, no games, no sob stories. Just a woman trying to unlearn a script we were both handed. We talked about our childhood. Our roles. How we were raised in a house that praised silence and punished defiance. How being good meant being useful. How love was measured in effort, not choice. It wasn't a dramatic breakthrough. No tears. No violins. But it was a start. At Christmas, my mom called to ask if I wanted to help with dessert, not to assign it to me. "If you don't want to, I totally understand," she said. This time, I said yes. Because it was a request. Not a command. And that made all the difference. New Year's Eve came quietly that year. I didn't go out. No big party, no sequin dresses or champagne flutes in crowded lofts. Just me, in pajamas, curled up on my sofa with a cup of herbal tea, watching the fireworks bloom silently across the downtown Nashville skyline through my 6th-floor window. I thought about how many years I'd wrung in midnight while cleaning up someone else's mess. Literal and metaphorical. I thought about how many resolutions I'd written out on crumpled notepad paper that centered on being less reactive, more helpful, a better sister, a better daughter, a better version of the version they wanted. And I thought about how none of them had ever asked if I was okay. If I was tired. If I needed space. This time, I made a new kind of list. One line. Don't shrink to fit their comfort anymore. And that one sentence carried more weight than all the years I'd wasted trying to be digestible. 2 weeks into January, I got a knock on my office door. It was Mason. Same Mason who stood between my parents and my front door, who played decoy and protector like a pro. He had just transferred to the Nashville branch, now working 2 floors above me. "Got time for coffee?" he asked. "I owe you one." We walked to a quiet spot near the lobby, a small corner cafe mostly visited by interns and project managers needing a caffeine fix. We sat by the window, steam curling off our cups. "I never told you," he said, "but that Saturday? Your family was intense." I raised an eyebrow. "They're professionals at it." He chuckled. "Your mom had this look like I'd insulted her church choir. She probably felt I had betrayed the concept of family unity." He leaned back. "You didn't. You did something most people never have the guts to do. You made the line clear." I looked down at the sleeve of my blazer, picking at a thread. It felt cruel sometimes. Still does. Mason tilted his head. "Cruelty is what they did. Disregarding your voice, your space. You set a boundary. That's survival. Not selfishness." I nodded slowly. "I had to do it with my dad once," he added. "We didn't speak for a year. But now, we do. And it's better. Healthier." He paused. "Sometimes silence is the only thing that makes people hear you." Later that night, I walked into my apartment and turned on the soft wall sconces I'd installed myself. The light hit the shelves just right, the vision board above my desk, my Utah photo framed near the kitchen, the single houseplant I hadn't killed yet. Every item chosen. Every inch mine. Not shared. Not borrowed. Not repurposed. Mine. And for the first time in a very long time, that felt like something to be proud of. One night in early February, my dad sent a text. "In town Thursday. Coffee?" I stared at it for a moment, unsure if this was another attempt to reset the stage or if, just maybe, he really wanted to talk. I agreed. We met at a small cafe across from his hotel, nothing fancy. He was already seated when I arrived, a black coffee in front of him, his phone face down on the table. That alone was a gesture. He looked up as I approached, nodded. "You look well." "Thanks." We made small talk, weather, work, taxes, until he cleared his throat and leaned forward. "I owe you an apology." I blinked. He kept going. "Not just for the apartment thing. For everything. For not seeing how often we leaned on you without ever giving you anything back." I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. He looked away for a moment, then added, "You know, when you left home so determined, I thought you were just stubborn. But now I realize, you were strong. We taught the wrong lessons. To you, to Emily. Even to Troy. We rewarded dependence and called it love. We punished independence and called it rebellion." His eyes met mine again. "And we were wrong." My throat burned, but I didn't cry. Because I needed this more than I'd ever admitted to myself. Not just the apology. The acknowledgement. The recognition that I wasn't the problem for wanting a life with boundaries. I nodded slowly. "Thank you." He lifted his coffee. "To better patterns." I raised mine. "To mutual respect." Valentine's Day came and went. Emily sent me a photo of a heart-shaped pizza she bought for herself. "First time I didn't pretend I had someone just for the Instagram post," she wrote. I laughed out loud. Texted back, "Growth looks good on you." We'd been texting more frequently, but not about the past. About the present. About goals, groceries, and random observations. We were building something new. Carefully. Like survivors of a storm rebuilding from scratch. One day she asked, "Do you think we'd still be close if I'd moved in?" I didn't sugarcoat it. No. I think it would have wrecked us. She sent back a gif of a volcano erupting. Then, glad you changed the locks on that disaster. I grinned. By March, the silence that used to feel like exile had turned into something I welcomed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was sacred. Protected. On Sundays, I still visited home sometimes, but not every time. And only if I chose to. Mom no longer assigned duties. Dad no longer made speeches. Emily no longer assumed. It didn't erase the past. But it reshaped the future. And sometimes, that's even better. Spring arrived in Nashville with a gentle breeze and the smell of something growing. You could feel it in the air, the shift. The shedding of old weight. And not just outside, but inside me too. I no longer flinched when my phone buzzed. I no longer felt obligated to answer every call or be the family's backup plan. My time was no longer defaulted to someone else's emergency. It was mine. Emily called one Thursday morning while I was sipping my second coffee on the balcony. Guess what, she said. What? I aced my probation period. They offered me a permanent contract. Benefits. Real salary. I let out a soft laugh. You're kidding. Nope. And get this, my manager said I'm one of the most reliable hires they've had all year. Me. The girl who once called in sick because of a hangnail. That's actually huge, I said, genuinely proud. You earned that. There was a short pause on the line. Then she said, I think I get it now. Get what? What it cost you. All those years being the strong one while I wasn't. I didn't say anything right away. But I felt it in my chest, something loosening. I never meant to make you feel used, she added. I just didn't realize I was leaning on a bridge you built with your own bones. The metaphor hit harder than expected. I'm glad you see it now, I said. And I meant that. Because I had spent a lifetime explaining, justifying, shrinking, only to be ignored. Now, someone was listening. My mom invited me to Easter brunch. But this time, she didn't ask me to bring anything. She didn't even guilt me when I politely declined. That's okay, she said. Maybe next time. We'll save you a plate. I don't think she realized how powerful those words were. I didn't attend. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove out to a small nature reserve just outside the city, took my shoes off, and walked barefoot through the grass. No roles. No expectations. Just the earth, my breath, and the distant sound of birdsong reminding me that rebirth doesn't need permission. It just needs space. Then came the text I didn't expect. From Troy. My younger brother, the golden boy of chaos. The one whose mistakes were always met with softness and second chances. He sent a photo of a stack of books. Studying for finals. Third school, but I think I'm actually gonna finish this time. Then, moments later. Emily said you've been different lately. In a good way. That you drew a line. I don't get it yet. But I'm proud of you. I didn't even know how to answer that. So I sent back a simple. Proud of you too. Finish strong. And maybe that was the best part, seeing them grow, not because I was bending, but because I finally stopped being their crutch. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the Nashville skyline and bathed my apartment in gold, I sat in my reading chair by the window. I pulled out my old journal. The one I hadn't touched since last fall. The last entry read. I am not obligated to carry others just because I'm not causing problems. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I turned the page and wrote something new. I deserve the space I've created. And I'm allowed to protect it. A week later, I got a knock on my door. It was Emily. Unannounced, but standing back, respectful, not barging in. She held a small plant in her hands. A tiny succulent in a ceramic pot. I wanted to give you something, she said. It's low maintenance. Doesn't ask for much. Just light and time. I smirked. Sounds like me these days. Exactly. I stepped aside. She came in, but didn't wander. She stood in the entryway, turning the pot in her hands. This place really feels like you, she said. Not a showroom. Not a family waiting room. Just you. I nodded. That was the goal. She smiled, placed the plant on the windowsill, and gave me a quick hug, not the kind that tries to fix things, just the kind that says I see you now. Then she left. No drama. No lingering. Just a small gesture. And the space to breathe. Later that night, as I watered the plant, I realized something. The people I loved hadn't changed because I yelled. They changed because I stopped absorbing the damage. Because I stopped performing the role I never auditioned for. Because I finally stepped off the stage and let the spotlight fall on them. And when they saw their own shadows, they chose to grow. Not because of me. But because I got out of the way. The final shift wasn't loud. It didn't come with a grand confrontation or teary apology. It came in the quiet moments, the way my mom asked before she assumed, the way Emily knocked before she entered, and the way my father started listening before he spoke. It was in the absence of chaos. And in its place, peace. Real peace. Not the kind you pretend to feel just to keep the room from erupting. But the kind you build, one quiet, steady decision at a time. 3 months after everything, my parents invited all 3 of us, me, Emily, and Troy, to a small family dinner. No agenda. No holidays. No announcements. I hesitated. But I went. Not because I was trying to prove anything. But because I knew this time, I was choosing to go, not being dragged into obligation. As I pulled up to the familiar cream-colored house in Franklin, a memory hit me hard. All the Sunday evenings I used to drive here with a knot in my stomach. How I'd pause at the door, rehearse my tone, force a smile. This time was different. I walked in carrying nothing but a salad and a clear sense of who I was. My mom greeted me at the door. "Hi, sweetheart." She didn't reach to take the bowl from me. Didn't fuss. Just smiled. Inside, the table was already set, more casually than usual. No swans made out of napkins. Just plates and glasses. Real ones. No performance. Emily was pouring iced tea. Troy sat at the table, holding court with a story about an awkward study group he joined to stay focused. My father looked up and smiled. "Sarah." Just that. No lectures. No loaded comments. Just my name, spoken like it belonged to someone whole. We ate, laughed, and passed dishes without tension. At one point, my mom leaned over and quietly said, "I see you now. I know I didn't before. But I do now." And I didn't need a long speech in response. I just said, "Thank you." Because that was the victory. Not revenge. Not being proven right. But being seen. Heard. Respected. After dinner, as I stood outside near my car, Emily came out and leaned against the hood beside me. "You think we're going to slip back into old patterns?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked. "No," I said. "Not if we keep doing the work." She nodded. "Promise you'll call me out if I start assuming again." "I will," I said, smiling. "And I hope you do the same." For once, we weren't acting like characters from the Hammond family drama. We were just 2 women trying to figure out how to have a relationship not built on guilt or default roles. Just one built on truth. And choice. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed, the sun brushing across my face like a reminder, "You did this. You built this life. You kept the door closed until they learned how to knock. And now? They do." Not always perfectly, but intentionally. Months passed. The plant Emily gave me grew a second sprout. I started dating someone new, slowly, without rushing, without trying to force them into a story. Just a man who respected my quiet and didn't see my boundaries as a challenge. Troy graduated. My dad asked me to look over his firm's new solar division contract, not because he didn't trust himself, but because, he said, I know you'll catch what I miss. My mom texted me before Mother's Day. I'd love for you to come, but only if you want to. If not, I'll still be thinking of you. I went. And for once, it wasn't about performance. It was about presence. You see, when I stopped letting guilt guide me, I finally found my own voice. And in doing so, I gave everyone else a chance to grow, or walk away. They chose growth. And I chose myself. Not out of spite, but out of love. Real love, the kind that says, I matter too. And sometimes, that love starts with a single, well-placed no. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away, it's about pulling yourself into focus. For anyone who's ever been the reliable one, the silent helper, or the family's emotional safety net, know this. Love without respect is obligation. And silence without consent is surrender. If you found strength in Sarah's story, leave a comment below and share your own experiences. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge. More powerful truths are coming.